Dreamers and Winners is about building mental equity and helping you win in life, business, family, using faith-based principles. And that's what we're about today. But we got a great show for you. We're going to talk about fears that creatives must overcome. Yes, fear. It's one of the biggest challenges as a creative is overcoming that. You know, we hear people talk about faith, but where there is faith, fear will try to be present and overcome your faith. So fear is always triggered by creativity, because creativity asks you to enter into a place that you have never been before, a place of uncertainty where you don't know the outcome. And fear hates uncertainty. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is fear of vulnerability. Being vulnerable. I know as creatives, sometimes we want to be in our shell and our cocoon, don't want to show what we're working on for the fear of vulnerableness, being vulnerable rather. So vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation and change. You have to become vulnerable for change and innovation to happen. And so creating is vulnerable. You know, when you create, essentially, you take a piece of yourself, you know, like we doing on this show here. I take a piece of myself and I introduce it to what I'm producing. I give of myself. I give them places that I may not always feel people are ready or I'm ready for people to experience. So creating is vulnerable. When you create, you give a piece of yourself. You put yourself on display to the world. And the crazy thing about that now, when you put yourself on display to the world, you're also giving people the opportunity to critique, to criticize, to give their opinion, and you got to be okay with that. But we have to overcome the fear of vulnerability. So fear of vulnerability is very powerful and very normal. It's normal to have that fear of vulnerable, not wanting to be vulnerable, or the outcome of that. So I don't want you to beat yourself up, because many times we feel like, very discouraged because we have a hard time opening up and being vulnerable in our process in what we are creating. So, and when we have a hard time opening up, instead we try, these things to help reject the fear of vulnerability instead of working through the fear of vulnerability. So here go two things I'm gonna give you about vulnerability. The first one is beware of your feelings. It's a lot easier to share what you're feeling if you know what those feelings are. It may be the fear of criticism, the fear of family and what they will say about what you've been working on, the fear of not being accepted. And so we don't always want to be vulnerable. So we stay in a cocoon of creativity. And then also we stay in this place of creativity that things are never done. They're never good enough. So try to pinpoint specific words that describe how you feel at this particular moment. Second, share your feelings a little at a time. Find someone that's not going to judge you, but they're going to listen. They're going to try their best to give you some encouragement, and share that, because sometimes releasing how you're feeling in that moment in time will help you overcome that fear of vulnerability. So that's one fear that we must overcome, is the fear of vulnerability. The second one is the fear of failure. Yes, the fear of failure. Theodore Roosevelt said it like this: it's hard to fail, but it's worse to never have tried to succeed. So fear of failure will paralyze you to not even trying. It will keep you in a place of what if. That's one particular thing about fear that you must know too, that fear constantly lives in a place of what if. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if they don't like it? And the mere thought of that is what stops many of us from trying to become, trying to produce, trying to create. We stop, or we don't even try to start because of that fear of failure. So we don't even try to start because of that fear of failure. So let's check this out. No one likes to fail. That's the truth. No one likes to fail. And no one wants to fail. They shouldn't. And creatives are no exception. Many times we feel like we are the exception to that thing I just said, that no one likes to fail, nobody wants to fail. But if you think about it, most of us are conditioned to be perfectionists. So part of the problem with failure and not processing failure correctly is that we limit ourselves from what failure produces. Failure is a teacher if you deal with it correctly. Failure will become a professor in your life, in your journey. Failure will make you a doctor, a professor, an expert at what you are producing if you do not allow failure to allow you not to process it correctly. So what happens a lot of time when people fail incorrectly, they immediately become a perfectionist, and it's never done, it's never ready. And so just the bad grade alone causes them to quit, because just the sight of seeing that I have not achieved it perfectly, right? And so messing up on a project at work gets you a negative performance. This is the society we live in, a negative review. We all, as creative, we don't like the reviews. I own a restaurant. We don't like reviews that are incorrect or misleading or just negative. Failure doesn't feel good, but it's not supposed to, because failure is like working out in the gym. When you first start out, you're doing 20 pounds, then you keep on going, you're doing 30, and you're working your way up. But in that process of starting, you don't look like you go to the gym for weeks. You're going, but your body internally is starting to change because you're creating a habit of working out. But externally, people say you're still fat, you're still overweight. And that observation or that review either is going to motivate us or make us feel like what we are doing is not worth it. And so ultimately, in our mind, we begin to believe that we failed. So the fear of failure can paralyze you. It will cause you to do nothing. It will make you a paraplegic in your creative process, in your business, in your family, in your ministry. It will stop you. All right. So let's talk about how to overcome fear. How do you help yourself work through the fear of failure? Try. Make an effort of the goal of work. Make an effort. For me, it is working, knowing where my fear triggers at. Because sometimes if I don't get the right response on a project, if I don't get the right, if things don't begin to work out in my time frame, I sometimes immediately get discouraged, especially when it comes down to like videos and our channel and our podcast. Like, you want people to share, you want people to engage positively. And many times it's crickets sometimes in the beginning of what we're doing. So we have to try to push through that. Every day, begin to work through that process of failure. That means do something every day to begin to break that, because one thing that can break failure is faith. But faith is a confident belief, right, in not the thing that you can touch, but the thing that you have heard and believed that you're supposed to do. So fear is the opposite of that faith, because it causes you to only stay in the reality of where you're at. And because you're not where you're at, it says it's pointless to move into a place that you can't see. You have to have a mentality that is focused on continual improvement. So when you have an improvement mindset, now you don't fear fear no more, because you know that as you consistently work and try, you're going to get better. It's going to become more easier for you to push into the place that you can't touch. And now you're going into a place of real faith now, because you're going by what you know, you're disciplining yourself. And so you have to have an improvement and a learning mindset that I'm going to grow, and I'm not going to allow this to stagnate me or paralyze me. All right. Another thing creators can do to overcome fear of failure is create for you. Like this show, Influence TV Network, and what I do for myself. I would consume this content. I would listen to this podcast and I would subscribe to this YouTube channel. So, don't become so infatuated with perfectionism and what you're trying to do, and to the point where you do not create no longer because you love it and you consume what you are creating. So stop creating for other people or for their approval. Create because you love it. Bring that back. When you love something, you'll do it even when you don't get paid. You don't get claps, you don't get applause, you don't get shares, likes, but you would do it because you love it. And the things that are loved would always grow, and they will always return to you bigger, better than what you started with, how you sent them out. And so if you begin to create because you love it and you create for yourself, then you can't fail because you're satisfying your desire of creativity for yourself. And all people are able to do is participate and benefit from the experience of your love for what you're creating. Thirdly, embrace failure. Failure is an inevitable part of the creative process. You can't avoid it, so embrace it. Every person who has ever created something ever has failed. Point blank, period. If they say they have not, and they say from the mama's belly and from the womb or the loins of their daddy, they was perfect, they're a liar. And they're failing at telling the truth right there, right? So I promise, pay attention to your failures. Learn from them, right? Learn from them. Don't allow people to failure shame you, because many times we are around individuals and people that they themselves have not processed failure correctly, and now they are a dream killer. And so they want to discourage you from trying, discourage you from pursuing, because they themselves have given up. And as they say, misery loves company. All right. So does your failure give you a new direction and insight? And that's the last thing I want to show you. Failure will give you a new direction and insight. It will say, hey, the whole thing ain't bad. Just this part. I need to figure out this part here. And I'm gonna go a different way with this here. I'm gonna put a new color on here. I'm gonna get a new camera. But I'm gonna continue. The point of the story is I gotta continue. I gotta get up. I gotta fail on my feet. And so that's a lot of times you gotta get up. And when you get up, stay up. Even if you fail, stay up. Another part of failure that we have to overcome as creatives is fear of success. It's true. Just as failure is a fear that us creatives need to overcome, so is success. It is hard to believe, right? We all pray for God bless me, I want to be successful. Start asking ourselves, start asking yourself some of these questions, okay? How will my life change if this really takes off? Many times we as creative, we have an idea, we have a business plan, we have a plan for our family, but we really sometimes plan without the expectation that it is going to happen. And so we will do all these things in the beginning, but really not have a real clear how we're going to react to the thing that we prayed for. What happens when you pray for something and it happens? Because many times we pray and we ask and we prepare, but we don't prepare and pray as if it's going to be answered. And so when it shows up, our character is not ready. Our spending habits are not ready. We have not even set up a side of processes for our businesses and things that we need to know how to do so that we can hire people and bring them in as the thing that we ask God to do comes to pass. So what are you going to do? Will I really be able to support my family? If this thing happens, what happens if I do well at first, then I run out of ideas, right? So these are some questions. So if you really start to think about questions like these, you'll likely hit a snag or, a part in the road of your creative process, and you feel unsure about the success, right? And so because you feel unsure about that success now, you fear the success, and then now you stop praying for it to happen, and you begin to you pray and operate to prolong it because you feel like you're not ready for it. And the fear of not being ready will cause you to fear manifesting. So we prepare, we train, we study, we get cameras, we invest in ourselves, we invest in our family, invest in our kids. And then when the reality hits that it's happening, we didn't invest in settling our hearts on what we will do, how we will react to the thing that is happening. What happens when we're not a struggling artist any longer? What happens when we have the following and we have the money coming in and we have the team? How will we react? So the bottom line is success means change, right? And so if you don't change and evolve from success or because of success, then you will be just like them individuals that get millions of dollars and billions of deals and never change their circle, order their circle, change their mentality, change their demeanor, their conversation, their communication style to adjust to the environment and the things that they have prayed for. They stay the same, and when people stay the same and don't allow, because success is supposed to change you. We all are pursuing success because we want to do something better with our lives. We want to change people's lives. We want to change our family. We want to break curses. So why are we doing this if we're not going to allow the thing that we are praying for when it happens to change us, and we prepare for that change? So how to overcome fear of success is envision success. So you got to begin to daydream about that. You got to begin to have moments in your life where you begin to say, I'm going to take this time for the next 20 minutes to assume that it happens. One thing I always say in my prayer time, when I'm teaching and stuff of that sort, it doesn't cost nothing to dream. It doesn't cost nothing to dream besides dreaming, you know? And so many times we need to sit down and say, hey, I'm going to dream as if I was successful. How would I react? What would be my attitude, my demeanor? What would be my functioning? How would I function? How would my family function? So you have to envision success. The next one, you have to build confidence. You deserve to succeed. You have to speak that. You know how many people don't feel like they deserve what they are getting because they're still living in a false perception of who they are, or they're around people that are living with old information and dealing with them with old information. That's why it's important that you order people around you, because some people are dealing with you from information that has expired, or old resume, or old demeanor, and you're not that person any longer. And so in order for you to build, to embrace and overcome the fear of success, you have to build your confidence. I tell people all the time, confidence you can't buy, you have to work on. Confidence is built, and it's built by you being consistently. And so if I'm gonna build confidence, I have to first embrace that I deserve success. I deserve to be blessed. I deserve my family to live this way. I deserve for my business to take off. I deserve for 8-9 figures every month. I deserve for this channel to be one of the #1 channels that help entrepreneurs and families grow in faith and business. I deserve it, because until you have that confidence, you're always going to be timid. One thing that it says in the Bible says that when we pray, we have to come to God boldly, right? Another scripture says the righteous are as bold as lions. Righteousness is not perfection, but we're righteous. We're made righteous because Jesus died for us. So he says, I want you to come to me like you're my child. Like I take care of you. Like I called you. You come to me with confidence, right? And so in order to overcome the fear of success, you have to work on confidence. Last one, to overcome the fear of success, work on anxiety. A lot of fears of success come from asking what if, and it causes you to go crazy. I've been there. I've dealt with that. I've been to counseling for anxiety, right? Because these questions, when you're constantly questioning the validity of your success, or you questioning the validity of your call, right? The enemy will always give you all these reasons why you're not going to succeed and why it's going to fail. And the more you ask, the more he will answer. The more you ask, the more he will answer. So you got to learn to trust the process that God has you on, so that you do not ask questions. You know, the worst thing in the world is when we're driving somewhere, me, my family, and my wife, and the kids, you know, we already shared. They've been here before. We've been to this state before. It's 12 hours, right? We left. It's 12 hours. 20 minutes in, are we there yet? No, we're not there yet. And they're giving you anxiety. You're about to throw them out the car because they're not trusting the process that the driver has them on. They're saying, well, what if we get there late? What if we don't? All these different what ifs, instead of just focusing on the arrival. Prepare yourself for when we get there. Make sure you're ready for your activities. Ready? Do you got your bathing suit? Do you have, all these different things? So we have to, deal with anxiety, the feeling of anxiousness, because it will cause us to fear the success. And so instead of anticipating the arrival, we fear the arrival. All right. So another fear that creators must overcome is the fear of inadequacy, right? Another fear creators must overcome is the fear of inadequacy. As a whole, creatives tend to be hard. We are hard on ourselves. We are hard critics. We are just hard, right? We don't even know always how to embrace when people are complimenting us or giving us an award. We're so hard on ourselves that we don't allow ourselves to celebrate the small successes, the moments where we are getting somewhere, the steps and the inches that we are achieving in our goals and purpose. So we want to create great things, but we want to make a difference in the world also. So, but as we compare ourselves to others, and this is the problem with social media, even with YouTube, is that this has entered us into an era of comparison. And comparison will not allow us to be content. There's a scripture that Paul said in the Bible. He says that whatever state I am in, I've learned to be content. It does not mean that he limited his faith, that he said, hey, this is all that I can do. But he says, I'm not going to be frustrated where I'm at. But while I'm here, I know there's more. But while I'm here, I'm going to master where I'm at. I'm going to be thankful. I'm going to be celebratory for the things I do have. But I'm not going to, sit around and feel inadequate. So we have to really sit down and know that where we are at is not always where we're staying at. Sometimes we're here for a moment in time so that God can really deal with some things in us, because sometimes we're ready creative-wise, but character-wise, we're still undeveloped. So where does the line of thinking take us? If we think that we aren't good enough, right, or inadequate, we start to feel ashamed and worthless, right? And this is why identity perception is very important, right? We must understand that we ourselves have to know who we are, because if we sit around and waiting for people to tell us who we are, well, they're going to tell us who we're not, and they're going to tell us what we shouldn't do. And so we must know who we are. All right. And so we disconnect ourselves from others in order to protect ourselves from them being hurt. When you know who you are, no one can discourage you from being who you are. And I'm going through this process now. Sometimes, I've been around mainly a lot of individuals that do not share publicly how I've been a blessing to them, or my greatness, or my ingenuity, but they'll share their criticism or their displeasure of something, but they have benefited from my process of who I am. And in times past, in my creative, I've stopped creating, I've stopped producing, I've stopped becoming who I am or being who I am because of feeling of inadequacy, because that was the dominating voices around me, and I was not embracing God's voice, because even no one says it. God is going to remind you who you are. Even when you aren't being who he says you are, he's going to say, I have more for you. So you might be dealing with this fear if you think things like, I'm not sure I have what it takes, and so I'm not going to start my YouTube channel. I'm not going to make a movie. I'm not going to open a business because I don't feel like I have enough money, have enough know-how. Another one is, I'll never get to the level of this person. Again, the spirit of comparison. You're comparing yourself to people. You don't know their journey. You don't know the backside. And again, like I said in another video, our world has been photoshopped and edited. And so many of the things that people are sharing is the edited version, is the cleaned up version. And while you're sitting around feeling like you can't do it, you're inadequate, you don't have enough, is not really what it seems to be. And so thoughts like this aren't just going to be take a major toll on your self-confidence, but they also take a toll on your quality and quality of your creative work. When you feel inadequate, you become inadequate. You produce inadequately. You become undisciplined. And so when you believe that you are adequate and you have enough, you produce on that same mindset. All right. So how to overcome inadequacy? Use affirmations. I am who God says I am. I am a 6- and 7-figure producer. I am a great father. I am a great mother. I am a great entrepreneur. I am a great leader. Affirm yourself. Many times when you don't have affirmations that are rooted in faith, then what you do is you allow yourself to curse yourself. You begin to say what I'm not, and that consciously will come out. You have to train your heart of what needs to come out your mouth, because whatever comes out your mouth comes out your heart. So a person that's always cursing and acting vulgar and crazy, that's what's in their heart. They can't help themselves until they clean their heart out. And so you want to put in your heart these affirmations of faith that says who you are. Even on a bad day, this is what comes out of your heart. All right. Recognize your strengths and own them. Right. It's not being arrogant. A lot of times I've been low key and let people play me out and downplay me when I have great strengths. I am a business mogul. I am a faith teacher. I am a person that can take someone from obscurity in their life to a place of prosperity. I have the understanding how to be a great father, a great husband. And so you have people are always recognizing your weakness, but never your strengths. I had a birthday party maybe 2 years ago. My wife gave me a birthday party. And, a lot of times people get up and they always say, hey, who's one to say something? Now I got a whole room of people, about 50% of the people I just met, and the other 50% I've known, I've helped, I've encouraged, I've given to them, I've supported them financially, whatever. But maybe only most of the strangers got up and said some great things. But the people that have really put help and really invested said nothing, because sometimes you got people that they don't want to recognize your greatness publicly, because they like to benefit from you, but they don't like you necessarily. And so they want to eat at the table, but they just mad that God made you to cook. And so you have to always recognize your strengths, right? Thirdly, separate your worth from your performance. Performance varies, worth doesn't, right? Because I may not be producing on the level that I want to produce, or I'm not seeing the results, does that mean I'm worthless? But I'm full of worth no matter what my performance is, because performance will shift based on what you're going through, what you're in, what moment what day and time you're in, right? So make sure you separate that, right? The next fear that we need to overcome as creatives is fear of hard work. This is a big one, right? So now before you get all defensive, I don't need to work every day, because we live in a culture at a time where people just always trying to tell you need a vacation, right? But I believe vacationing and leisure and different things is a reward for the investment you have made. I say this all the time. You got people vacationing and coming back home to no car, no house, no nothing, barely, because their mindset is vacationing. Vacationing is a place of peace, a place of reward, a place that you deserve, right? But when you are always in vacationing mode and never in work mode, right, you're trying to evade responsibility. Every man and woman has a responsibility to make deposits in the earth, whether that's being a mother, whether that's being a father, a business owner, whatever it is, right? So when you refuse to work hard at the deposits that you must make, and you're always saying, I want to be on the beach, and you're always making these sacrifices to do that thing, but the thing that you're put on the earth to do, you do very bootleg, you're not consistent in that, that's a problem, right? So I'm not saying that creative people are lazy, but sometimes we cannot be focused. Creative people can do and work very hard to put their work out into the world. But I do notice, I do notice that many creatives I meet seem to think that their hard work should be easy, right? This is what I always say about work, right? I have an ownership mentality. I don't have an employee mentality. I have an employer mentality. And then a different mentality, an employer mentality, or a person that is a leaseholder or a renting mentality, not an ownership mentality. They're looking for the quickest and easy way to get what they want with the least investment, right? And so they have in business these different programs where you can, I have an app design and a technology company where we can buy a product that someone else has created and license the product, put our logo on it, but ultimately the product is only a licensed product. We did not go through the process of innovation, of creativity. We just saw a product that we can resell. Right? So the dividends and the profit of that product is not as much as the person that has created the product. And they call it white labeling, right? You put your name on something, and though you're making some money, if the core person, the person that owns the IP to the product, the intellectual property rights to that product, decides no longer I want to sell it or I want to white label it, you're out of a business, right? And so that's the difference between those that have a renting, leasing mentality and an ownership mentality, because the person that owns it not only has the control, the ultimate control over it, but the person will never, unless they choose to shut down, will always have the rights to their product. And they choose what happens. So you have a lot of people that, they don't want to do the hard work. So how do we overcome the fear of hard work, right? Without labor, nothing prospers, right? So let me show you this, right? And we're going to talk about this in another video. There are a lot of people, I know why they don't have no money. And I know why they got one view on their YouTube. And I know why their business is not growing and they're not getting opportunities, because they're watching TV, ratchet TV. They're watching, they're listening to every song that ain't profiting them. They don't read books. They don't put themselves in master classes and courses and webinars. They're not constantly training, and see, there's a difference when you get to a certain level and you say, oh man, I've been working for 5 years. Now I could take a few breaks, but you are still broke. You're still struggling. You're living week to week, day to day, and you have peace in that. That should unsettle you and say, hey, I got to work this thing. I don't care if you had a 9-to-5 job. When you get home, 5 to 11, I'm working my dreams. I'm working that thing. So you're not producing or prospering because you're not putting the work in to prosper. How can you work past that fear? Okay, let's talk about this. Read stories. Because, the enemy, the devil always tell you you're the only one going through this. No, find some people, find some podcasts. Find some podcasts, find a book, because somebody has the same situation and they overcame it, right? Invest in your outcome, invest in, that. And so let me show you this too. Sometimes people are not really growing because they don't want to spend $20 on a book that's going to help them grow. They don't want to take a master class for $500. They want something for free. Or they'll get it for free. They don't want to get up at 5 in the morning to click in the Zoom. So they don't want to put the work in. You got to find that anybody that has a success story has a work story. Oh, that's a bar right there. Anybody that has a success story has a work story. Something they had to do. So they couldn't go out. I always, see why some people don't grow, because they have addictive behaviors. They rather go get drunk. They rather go dancing. They rather go partying. They rather sit on the group chat. They rather sit on Facebook and Instagram and just watch cats sing and people twerk. So, but then they look back at their account, it's empty. Look about their life, it's empty. Look at their spiritual life, empty. All right. So you have to, find people, like the Bible says, that we find people that, or we imitate those who through faith and patience inherited the promise of God. So when we see somebody making it, imitate them. Join them in that making it process, right? Create every day, right? Don't let a day go without creating. We got $2,000 phones and we got to get to the studio. Every day, make a YouTube short. Write a little bit in your book. Create every day. Work on that thing every day. And that work will become such a part of your nature that even when you get to that place of vacation, it will have such a residual effect, because you're constantly planning and you're reaping the harvest of you producing every day. So I went over these things today about, the fears that us as entrepreneurs got to overcome. And I want you to really think about this. I want you to share. I want you to subscribe to my channel. And really, let's grow together. Let's grow as dreamers and winners. Let's make this thing happen. And listen, write a comment in the bottom of your review of this episode. Let me know that you're listening. Make sure you click on our links for our merch. I got it wrong. Grind University, new shirts, new sweatshirt season right now. And let's really make some things happen. Let's make some things really take place in our lives, and let's overcome failure. Peace. This is T.R. Burns, Dreamers and Winners. Love you. Talk to you later.